Good day, everyone, and we are going to present Manila Marriott Hotel, a risk management paper presented to the Faculty of Tourism Management Department of College of Tourism and Hospitality Management of De La Salle University, Dasmariñas, in partial fulfillment of the requirements of H-Tour 214 Risk Management. Starting with the executive summary, we have Ms. Reyes.
Let us start with the executive summary. The purpose. Begun in 2009, Manila Marriott Hotel is an internationally famous establishment that has evolved and established itself as one of the top hotels in the metro, situated in the Resorts World Complex in Pasay City, Manila. Delivers excellent specialties such as MICE, restaurants, lounge, and recreational facilities. This study produced a strategic risk management plan for the Marriott Manila Hotel. The goal of the proactive risk management strategy is to be prepared to accommodate the hotel's risk of a disruption in regular business operations while protecting guests, associates, assets, and ensuring the continuation of the core business services. Now, moving on to the risk management strategies.
Risk identification. Since this industry itself is competitive, Marriott hotels operate in markets with a high concentration of competitors. Some of the risk identifications are environmental risk, biological risk, workplace accidents, intentional acts, technological hazards, interruptions in supply chain, and mental hazards. Moving on to risk responsibilities.
Several departments are responsible for specific risks, and they should carry out their roles effectively. The risk manager, hotel security department, hotel chief engineer, and IT manager are some of the departments and employees responsible for the hotel's risks. The majority of the required actions must be taken proactively by the operators. Failure to do so may lead to negative reputational consequences. Moving on with risk assessment.
After identifying the different risks, the next important thing to do is to assess them. This risk can be assessed using a risk assessment matrix, which shows the severity of a risk event by multiplying the rate of the impact with the rate of the probability. In the risk register of Marriott Hotel, these are the following risk events. The risk event with a low priority level of 5, according to the risk register, is labor strike with an impact level of 5 and a probability of 1, meaning it poses a low risk. While the following risk events with a priority level of 95 are termination of employment, arson, data breach, interruption in supply chain, bullying, violence, and workplace accidents. These risk events indicate a medium risk. The risk events with a priority level of 15 to 20 are flooding, earthquakes, fire, pandemic diseases, foodborne illnesses, food contamination or poisoning, bomb threats, robbery, fatigue, harassment, and burnout. Such events indicate a high risk. Lastly, the risk event with a priority level of 25 with an impact level of 5 and a probability of 5 is stress. This event poses a critical risk and needs a mitigation response immediately. Those were the following risk events that were assessed after careful consideration on how it will affect Marriott Hotel and anything associated with it, and the probability of it occurring. After having assessed them and knowing its corresponding priority level, it is now necessary to know the risk response by Hannah Reyes.
In response to the identified risks and hazards, the Manila Marriott Hotel has developed a set of heightened risk response and strategies devoted to providing excellent service. Here are some responses that have been executed. In the case of environmental disaster, evacuation plans, passageways, and emergency exits are planned out, posted in strategic parts of the building. For biological risk, there's the Manila Marriott Hotel's international commitment to clean. For workplace accident, the hotel held the liabilities to any mishaps, varying to the event that had occurred. For intentional acts, security procedures and risk assessments in the property are often reviewed. Staffs are trained to assess and respond appropriately to threatening situations. For technological hazards, technical management have overseen handling the latest Marriott international data breach through the Marriott Bonvoy app. In case there's an interruption in supply chain, Manila Marriott utilized the value chain analysis. For mental hazard, Marriott never fails to provide a healthy work-life balance, providing exclusive benefits to its associates. That's a summary for the risk response. Now moving on to the risk mitigation.
Risks are inevitable in business. Businesses must reduce their exposure to risks and find ways to mitigate them to remain competitive in business. Identification and acknowledgement of risks that affect the operations, profitability, security, or reputation of the business is the first step. Developing strategies to mitigate these risks is the next and the most essential step. Here are the risks identified at Marriott Hotel: flooding, earthquakes, fire, pandemic diseases, foodborne illnesses, food contamination or poisoning, workplace accidents, termination of employment, labor strikes, bomb threats, robbery, arson, data breach, interruption in supply chain, stress, fatigue, bullying, harassment, violence, and burned out. Avoid, accept, reduce or control or transfer are some strategies how to mitigate risks. First is avoidance. In this case, risk avoidance means not performing that activity that causes the risk. Managing risk is in this way is most like how people address personal risks. Second is acceptance. It's coming to terms that the risk exists and there is nothing you will do to mitigate or change it. It makes sense to adopt risk when the cost of mitigating or avoiding it will be higher than merely accepting it and leaving it to chance. Third is reduce or control. It is the most common strategy because there is usually a way to at least reduce risk. It involves taking countermeasures to decrease the impact of consequences. Lastly is transfer. It involves moving the risk to another party or entity. Risk transfers can be outsourced, moved to an insurance agency, or given to a new entity as it what happens when leasing property. Moving on to the risk contingency plan.
As for the risk contingency plan, even though the Manila Marriott Hotel is a massive corporation known for delivering the best, it is still possible that unforeseen incidents will occur. It is critical to identify these risks and know how to respond to them whether they occur or not. Security and safety are prioritized by having appointed individuals and sufficient guidance on what to do in the event of a risk. We have divided the risk contingency plan into two categories, namely Category A for natural events and Category B for man-made events. Under Category A, we have identified risks such as floods, storm, earthquake, fires, and epidemic, whilst for Category B, we have identified IT disruption, equipment failure, staff injuries and incidents, strikes, loss of supplies or supplied goods, electrical shutdown, and theft as risks that are possible to happen under man-made. As part of the hospitality industry that delivers service and safety to people, having a risk contingency plan for such events is important for management and employees to know how to mitigate and resolve should such occurrences happen. In the risk contingency plan table, there it is listed on what are the control measures should the risk happen or as preparation to avoid such risk, and it's also listed who are the persons at risk and the person responsible to take action. And now moving on to tracking and reporting.
In tracking and reporting, the researchers were tasked to discover when a risk response should be conducted. The suggested duration of the following risk response are also included in the paper, as well as the suggested date of evaluation. The risk response are mostly in accordance with the government warnings since they are the ones who has the capability to advise warnings and the Marriott Hotel is under their governance. With that said, natural risks like flooding, earthquakes, pandemic are suggested to have annual evaluations and must rely to the mandates given by the government. Meanwhile, employees related risks like workplace accidents, termination of employment, and labor strikes are suggested to have a response every time an employee is unsettled or close to harm. It is suggested for them to take weekly evaluation to ensure that the said risks are mitigated. Although employee related risks are namely foodborne illnesses and food contamination are suggested to have a monthly evaluation because these type of risks are unusual but not something to relax on. Security related risks, on the other hand, is entitled to daily evaluation because this is heavily linked to the safety of all employees and customers. Security risks are an everyday threat to tourism establishments like hotels and requires cautious actions to completely secure the lives of all employees and customers. Moving on with Ms. Daniela.
Processes to address immediate unforeseen risk. There are several unforeseen risks that need to be addressed. Although staff of the hotel may actually tell when those risks will occur, it is still important for them to be prepared to lessen the effects of those risks. And here are some unforeseen risks, the immediate solutions. First, we have hiring, retaining, and removing of staff. We have a pandemic happening currently in our country. Manila Marriott Hotel, just like any other hotels, was forced to remove most of their employees as our country observed the social distancing limiting of capacity of the hotels. Training the new workforce on a regular basis is one solution when needed to hire new staff. Retaining a qualified staff is another solution when you need to remove staff. Next unforeseen risk is the change in marketing trends and dynamics. This is something that not a person could handle. No one could tell when something will immediately gain popularity or not. One solution for this risk is to engage in social media, messaging, messaging apps, and other online sources that can work wonders and give you results in a few months. Implementing effective digital marketing strategies is a strong solution to such issues in the hospitality industry. Next, we have unforeseen risk is housekeeping issues. In the hotel industry, this is pretty much a common risk that is still unpredicted. Cleanliness is a basic requirement of every guest. In fact, you'd also ask for a clean and tidy hotel room when you are traveling. The solution for this risk is hotels needs to be managed well with effective strategies and through processes. The housekeeping process needs to be aware of the clean and dirty rooms and constantly maintain common areas, especially post this pandemic. Maintaining online reputation is a must, especially in the hotel industry. Today, internet savvy visitors look for the brand reputation first before booking a hotel room. The solution for this is quite simple. It is always crucial to track when guests are saying about your brand and the services you provide. Review management systems help you monitor, manage, and respond to your online reviews regardless of the platform and language. Unforeseen risks pose a threat for they come unexpectedly, which is sure to be the company's downfall, just like with the current pandemic that we're facing right now. It is important to be prepared and give immediate action on how will you face this stress, for the future is unknown. Safety is the number one priority, and having these steps will help the staff of Manila Marriott Hotel to be prepared with dealing with an unforeseen risk. Moving on to the crisis management plan.
Crisis identification and impacts. Financial crisis. A condition in which one or more significant financial assets suddenly lose a significant portion of their nominal value. Asset prices have fallen, consumers and businesses are unable to pay their debts, and financial institutions are bracing a liquidity crisis. Impacts are tourist arrival, decline, reduction of employees, company liquidation, and financial market value crashes. Moving on to personnel crisis.
Employees of a large corporation such as the Marriott Hotel represent the level of service and the company's image. With such a profession, any type of misconduct, unethical, or illegal action on the part of employees can rapidly ruin the company's reputation and brand. Impacts would be damaged hotel reputation, reduced customer trust, questionable service, drawn media attention, and publicized backlash. And now moving on with technological crisis.
The modern society heavily relies on the usage of technology, and this may become a threat to the company and its employees if not acted upon. Important data from Marriott Hotel can be stolen and be used against them and its employees. The following risks are data breaches, hacking, information leakage, and privacy information leakage. Moving on with organizational crisis.
There are situations wherein the company has significantly wronged its consumers and employees. These certain situations may happen in hotels such as Marriott Hotel. Rather than creating mutually beneficial relationships, these businesses use the customers as a mean of benefiting the company or abuse their employees for their own benefit. Cost to hire and train new employees, reputation damage, a loss of sales, lower morale, reduced productivity, negative feedbacks from customers, reduces customer loyalty to their company are one of the results of this crisis. Moving on to the natural crisis.
Natural disasters include all types of severe weather which have the potential to pose a significant threat to human health and safety, property, critical infrastructure, and homeland security. Natural disasters occur both seasonally and without warning, subjecting the nation to frequent periods of insecurity, disruption, and economic loss. The hotel industry is particularly vulnerable and exposed to the risk of property being physically damaged or destroyed. Apart from the physical damage, there is also an accompanying economic risk of the tourism sector suffering as tourists avoid areas affected by a disaster event. It might also result to personal injury or illness, loss of financial resources, loss of life, power outage, and high costs of reparation. Moving on to crisis resolution plan.
Crisis action and resolution plans, financial crisis. Setting financial priorities will cause the company to suffer less damage, appointing a board of directors to finance the budget while anticipating potential risks, in addition to planning and keeping track of progress. Impacts are halt non essential spending, analyze compensation, transparency of financial expenses to proceed with tracking and plan, and renegotiate with key suppliers. Resolutions are hold tracking record progress monthly, formulating designated team for financial management, reassessing financial expenses to avoid possible liquidity of resources, and it may take months for the crisis to be eliminated, aided with clarity for workers on the said situation. Moving on to personnel crisis.
Once the core cause of a personal crisis is identified, it can be resolved. The first step in determining how to deal with a problem should be to determine the scope of the condition. The next step is to determine the proper disciplinary punishment for the employer's irresponsible behavior, and finally, present the company statement on the subject in order to avoid further escalation of the crisis through conjecture and false charges. Once these actions are implemented, impacts can be enhanced performance rate, competent employees, better delivery of quality service, improve company image and reputation. With this type of crisis, people involved are the management or department head of which the employee is under, and of course the employees involved in the illegal misconduct. Resources needed to solve a personal crisis include creating a coverage plan for liabilities, better management employee relationships, and tightened employee disciplinary training. Moving on with technological crisis.
All technological crises can be mitigated by simply promoting technology literacy. This can be done through a series of seminars. In addition, this can also be resolved through applying antivirus on all technologies used by the hotel management. These risks can be fully mitigated by the use of VPN, making employees technology literate, antivirus usage, and securing backup copy of important files. Moving on with organizational crisis.
For organizational crisis action plan, the hotels should efficiently manage their organization, work collectively towards the common objective under authority and leadership, treat their employees with respect and dignity, provide accurate information, and refrain from withholding essential information from employees and customers. In this manner, both the employees and guests would not be put at risk. For its resolution, resolving organizational conflict needs to be done as soon as possible, as it may affect the hotel's business. It could take months to organize and improve its management team. Therefore, good decision making and effective communication are necessary to prevent a repeat of the situation between the hotel, management team, and guests. Now, moving on to natural crisis.
Natural crises can be a very unpredictable event, and such events bring disasters like flooding and earthquakes, resulting into destruction of property or more. Even when these events are unforeseen, the action plan should be anticipated. According to the Action and Resolution Plan for Natural Crisis, Marriott Hotel must carry out the process of investing in emergency and warning systems. This resolution will prove effective, especially in a time when hotel guests and staff alike have to be alerted and evacuated from the hotel immediately. Moreover, even though it is a hotel, there should still be more than enough supply of food and emergency kits in case they will be stranded at the hotel. Lastly, being prepared for a disaster is pivotal for the survival of many. Employees of the hotel should be equipped with the knowledge of first aid, evacuation, emergency planning, and more safety measures. And with that, we conclude the risk and crisis management plan of Marriott Hotel, deeming it as effective and useful for future occurrences. That is all, and thank you.